Okay, the next step is setting up the wireless on your wireless router. Every router is different, but one way to find out once you're plugged in, at least on a Mac, you can open your networking preferences and it'll show us what the IP of the router that we're plugged into. So I'll click here and it shows that our router address is 192.168.0.1. So what we'll do is we'll go to 192.168.0.1. We'll enter that router address. It asked me for a username and password, and this one it was just admin, and if you would reset your router, you can just go to the typical default of what the router username and password is to get logged in. Typically, on your router, there's going to be a quick setup, and we'll walk through that quick setup. Okay, in this case, it can either auto-detect. What we use is dynamic IP, so whether you're using your computer or your router, it's DHCP. So I'm just going to select dynamic IP, go to the next step. So here it's asking us if we want to clone the MAC address. We typically don't want to. We're going to say no. Next step is, do we want to enable the wireless radio? In this case, it would be yes. Now we want to give ourselves a wireless network name. So we could just say apartment 510, for example, or whatever we would want to name our wireless network. We're going to set it up to auto channel. That means it's going to, every time it would reboot, it will select the best wireless channel. We're going to let it auto channel with. We're going to set up security so that we have a passphrase, so no one can jump on our wireless. We're going to say we are Penn State. We're going to go to the next, and you can see that I used capitals, and in this case they matter. The next step, it says that we've set up our wireless network and we should reboot. So what that's going to do is that's going to reboot our wireless router while it takes on those settings. Every wireless router is a little bit different, and like I said, your wireless router is really your responsibility. If you're having issues with your wireless or your internal network, we do recommend that you call the router manufacturer for additional assistance. Further, with wireless interference in apartments today, we highly recommend that you get the best router possible. Sometimes they're in the neighborhood of $250 to $300, but they're going to be the most interference robust routers, and apartment complexes just tend to have lots of interference to deal with. Once it says rebooted, we should be able to disconnect our Ethernet or our network cable. And at this point, we should be able to turn our wireless networking back on. And we'll take a look for the network name that we set up. We set up apartment 501. You can see we see a bunch of other networks as well, but we see apartment 501. It's asking for our password. We are Penn State. I can show what I typed in, so that's what we set. It's now showing connecting. And we'll get a connection up here. So now showing that we are connected to the wireless router that we set up. And we are on and surfing wirelessly. Now any other devices you would use would also be set up the same way. And that's it. So you should be able to surf the web wirelessly if you have a wireless router and you set that up. We showed you how to set up your modem. So obviously you have your modem, you want to make sure all the lights are lit, you want to make sure it has power and everything's connected properly. Then you would connect your router or your wireless router and connect to that. We do recommend in apartment environments where there's lots of wireless interference that if you can connect directly from your router to your computer or your device, that is always going to give you the fastest speeds and the best service. But we do know that that's not always possible. Have a great semester, and thank you for choosing Getwireless.net.